Welcome to Forum 360 on Fusion, your PBS channel. Thank you for joining us on our global outlook with a local view. This is Leslie Ungar, your host today. Every few years on Forum 360, we turn our attention to this small country, a country slightly smaller than New Jersey that gets a Texas-sized amount of attention. The only democracy in the Middle East, a country with no oil, but a country that has given us Waze, voicemail, instant messaging, the defibrillator, and the camera phone chip. Every few years, Israel sends the Akron-Canton area emissaries for a 1 or 2 year stay. For the foreseeable future, this area will have the pleasure to host a young Israeli, Mor Roffe, as our Shaliach, emissary from Israel. Welcome and thank you for coming to this country to connect Israel to America and to connect America to Israel.
Toda rabba, Leslie. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
And tell our viewers, Toda rabba means?
Toda rabba, thank you. Toda rabba.
Thank you. First, take us back to growing up in Israel. Where did you grow up? Maybe if people, know Israel, if they haven't been there, maybe they know Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Maybe they know beaches. Maybe they know the Holy City. But tell us, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a growing city about 20 minutes to the east from Tel Aviv. It's called Rosh Ha'ain, or in literally translation, Head Eye, or the heads of the fountains. It's named after the start of the Yarkon River, which is the north river in Tel Aviv. It starts in my city, so literally I can kind of sail to Tel Aviv. It started as a small town with the Yemenite Jewish campsite, and it grew up to be a fantastic city that I love to grow over there, and I believe I will stay over there too.
Well, I have to ask you, the very first time I went to Israel in the 80s, Yemenite food was my very favorite food. So if it started as a Yemenite city, do you still have Yemenite food?
Of course. I think what I really, really miss from Israel, I think if someone asked me what's the food that I really, really miss, it's called
That
jachnun.
was going to be one of my questions.
Oh, really? So it's going to be jachnun. It's kind of a dough roll-up, and you take it and with a tomato sauce in the side. It's really delicious thing that I ever ate, but you're not supposed to eat it so much.
Well, I remember at the very, very end of Ben Yehuda Street was this little restaurant called the Yemenite Step, and that was my very favorite food the first time I went to Israel.
Well, I'm not Yemenite, but I really appreciate what they brought to us.
To many Americans, you are just Israeli, okay? So we just paint all Israelis with a broad brush, you're Israelis. But Israelis come from different countries with different cultures, different backgrounds, different languages. What are your roots?
My roots, if we go back, so the closest thing that I have is my grandfather, David. He came from Turkey, Izmir, Turkey. By train through Syria to Jerusalem. In the past, we had those kind of trains. So I'm kind of quarter Turkish. Okay. If I go to the other, so from my mother's side, my grandmother, Malka, came from around Bulgaria. She's supposed to be Sephardic. And from my father's side, we're mostly a lot of time in Israel. So it's kind of Ashkenazi roots. Ashkenazi roots is more Eastern Europe roots. And Sephardic is from Spain.
Now, how far back can you trace your family being in Israel? Your parents, your grandparents, how far back?
Well, myself, I can't really specifically say how far back, but from stories and what I heard and when I asked, every 13 years old student in Israel do a project called Shorashim, or Roots. Okay. That means you kind of research your background and your ancestors, kind of in the age of bar mitzvah, it's a Jewish ceremony of becoming a mature person. So when I searched it over, I heard some stories from my grandmothers and grandfathers, and here they're kind of from where we came from, but not something really specifically.
So your grandparents were in Israel, are in Israel, were in Israel.
Yeah,
so you know that grandparents were there. You know that far back. Okay. Some viewers and listeners may know that everyone in Israel pretty much everyone goes to the Army at 18 or some kind of public service. We understand that most look forward to going to the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force. Did you look forward to going, and in what ways did you serve?
I really looked forward to go to the Army. I think it's kind of, it's kind of a thing that you think about and you work about mostly in your high school life. Instead of the American going like to search for colleges and think what you're going to learn, we search on what profession I want to do in the Army. So before I actually went to the gap year, I will talk about it soon, I wanted to be a doctor. Kind of like my last name is Roffe. Roffe is a doctor in Hebrew. And I was like, okay, I need to fulfill this. And I decided maybe to go to be a medic. After that, I decided to delay my Army in a year to do a gap year or a serving year through my youth movement. And while this year, I decided that I really love education and to work with teenagers, and I really believe it's something that I want to do. So I changed it and decided to be a teacher. And so when I came to the Army, I was recruited as a teacher, working with low socioeconomic neighborhoods in Haifa and later in Or Yehuda, in the center region of Israel. And mostly my writing work was mostly to do a pre-army preparation. But while doing that, you get in contact with teenagers who probably dropped off from school or don't have a belief they're going to be a good future for them. And you try your best to be a role model to them and to give them back the belief and the hope there is a future for you. Even if it's in the Army and you can have this stage to go back to the society and give back, or maybe to have a profession, or maybe to try to get them back to school. And while you are in school, they come for you, but at the end of the day, they come back to school.
You know, that doesn't sound all that different than I mean, somebody could be doing that exact same job in America, working with at-risk teenagers. So tell us, you know, Israel is such a small country. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. But what would you like to know, someone that doesn't know very much about Israel? What would you like them to know about Israel?
I really believe that I really want people to know that Israel, it might be really, really small, but it has so many colors inside of it. It can be by the people, the variety of different people that we have in Israel, the variety of opinions. You can go to one little city and meet so many different cultures.
For example?
For example, in my city, you can meet like the Yemenite Jew culture or the Ethiopian Jew culture, and maybe the Ashkenazi Eastern European culture in one about fifth of the size of Akron. And this is really amazing. You can go to Tel Aviv and meet so many different people that you might never see, or you know, you will work hard to see them to have to travel all the world in one small place. And beside the people, you can travel Israel in about 2-3 months by walking, to do a hiking, the Israeli Trail, and to go from the mountains and the forests of the north, and after 1 month to be in the desert and the mountains and the sands over there. And it's really amazing to be in one small country that has like a lot of things that the world has to give to you, to humankind. So
2 or 3 months to walk it, but to drive across Israel at its widest point would take how long?
From north to south, it takes about maybe 10 hours if you're like stopping in the middle, you know, getting a drink. Without stopping, I guess it can be 6, maybe 5. It's not that long, especially when they built a road that actually goes from north to south Israel in straight line, and it makes it much easier to travel.
Now, besides the different colors, okay, of people and cultures in Israel, what is something that would surprise us to know about Israel? Either the people, the country, the politics. What is something that would surprise us?
Surprise us. I think if we go by the way of living of people, it's very, very different than what we have in America.
In what
what I
ways?
see in America.
Okay.
Well,
And let me just interject here. You have now been here as we are taping the show. You have been here a whopping
2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, for Israel is to think about America. If you think about it, everything is big, and all the big cities and towers and everything is so big. In Israel, when you go, everything is small. You go to your probably local grocery store, and even like the big grocery stores are not that big like what we have over here. But even though that it might be small country, and might everything be kind of smaller than what we have in America, there is a lot to offer inside this small state. And that's the thing. What is really surprising when I meet Americans who come over to Israel. Well, every time they finish the tour, they say, it might be really small, but I didn't finish anything. I really want to come back. I have so much more to see.
You know, I was in Israel in May, and one thing that surprised me, and this was not my first trip, but Tel Aviv is such a young city. So many young people and young couples and young families, and I swear I saw more male men wearing hair buns, male buns, than in Tel Aviv than I have ever seen in one city in my life. But it has a very young vibe. That's one thing that surprised me on this trip.
Tel Aviv is considered to be kind of the younger city. Well, you can have like a lot of nightlife, and it's actually not long ago we had like the vegan day in Tel Aviv, considered to be like the vegan capital of the world.
Wow.
Because you can find many dishes, vegan dishes, without thinking of what you're not eating. And it's very amazing because you can go in this, which is considered to be like the second biggest city in Israel, but it's not that big after all. And you can find many things, and to travel many places in Tel Aviv that you can't finish in 1 or 2 days.
When I was there, the whole country, but really Tel Aviv, was getting ready for the Gay Pride Festival. And that was like everybody was getting their flags out and was getting ready for this onslaught of a couple 100,000 people coming.
In Tel Aviv, it's considered to be the Pride. It's considered to be like a party, to celebrate who you are, and to celebrate what you believe, and to celebrate what you love. Love is love, after all.
Which we may take for granted, but you probably couldn't do in some of the neighboring countries.
Yes, in some actually, they believe that some of the neighboring countries, there are people who come over from Lebanon or Syria, and to reach Tel Aviv to be in this kind of parade in so many ways. I don't know how. But this is kind of the only place in the Middle East you can see this kind of thing. It's not only in Tel Aviv. Even in Jerusalem we have a parade, and even in Beersheba, in Haifa, and it's going to be in many other cities who are considered to be less liberal than Tel Aviv. And this is a good progress I think, for Israel, the Israeli people, and even in the whole Middle East, to be kind of a role model that I believe maybe in the future, the countries surrounding us, maybe we'll do it the same.
We've been talking with Israel's emissary, Shaliach, Mor Roffe, who has come here just 2 months, has come here to spend a year or two, to be decided, as an emissary between Israel and the Northeast Ohio, Akron, Canton areas. How did you choose Akron, or did Akron choose you?
It's kind of a both-way choice. While I've been testing my Jewish agency test, when you finish them, you have kind of a roll-up. You try to roll between communities until you get like a match. Say, you're okay,
like
they're
dating.
okay. Kind of like dating.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah, kind of like dating.
Doesn't work with 1 thumb up and 1 thumb down, right?
Usually it comes from the community. They say yes or no, and then you need to decide if you want it or not. So after a while, it's not that long time, but for me it was, every time you schedule an interview, and until they give you the results and what's going on, it takes some time. I reached the Akron Canton community, and the interview went so fluently and so calm, and so it was fun to talk with the people. That after I think a day, and not usually it's after a few weeks, after a day I got this answer of yes, they want you. And I gave the answer of, yes, I want them.
Okay, so be honest with us. What did they really tell you about winter?
About winter? Well, the first thing they told me that, I think the first time I came over here, on the first day, I went to do grocery, and people figure out that I have a weird accent. They asked me, where are you from? I told them, I'm from Israel. And they asked me, do you know about the winter? And I told them, it's going to be cold, I guess. Well, that's what I know about winter. You know, every Israeli have connection to Israel, to the internet. And they told me it's not just cold. It's going to be really cold. It's like, how much cold? So around negatives. It's like negative Celsius. It's like Celsius is much higher than Fahrenheit. It's like, no, negative Fahrenheit. It's like, wow. And every time I stepped out the house and I met people, they asked me if I'm ready for the winter. And so actually I'm I'm really excited for the winter. As Israeli person, you don't see very much of snow, and you don't really get to see.
I was in Jerusalem and saw snow in Jerusalem, I want you to know.
Yeah, the snow in Jerusalem there is sometimes snow in Jerusalem, but I don't live near Jerusalem, and whenever it snows, all the country is going to Jerusalem, or the Mount Hermon in the north, which is usually getting snow because it's the highest mountain in Israel. And after a while, when snow is getting lots of people on it, the snow is getting muddy.
It's not pretty.
It's not really pretty, and you don't really get the experience of snow. So here, like I'm actually experiencing this time the fall, which is really beautiful over here, and all the colors. I'm really excited to be the.
I'm excited too. I never get tired of the first snow.
Yeah.
The first snow. Now you said something interesting. You said, if you're shopping or whatever, and people hear your accent, they ask you where you're from. So when you say, you're Israeli, or I'm from Israel, what kind of reactions do you get from people?
Most of the times, it's not that a surprising reactions, but if it's not that, most of the people are really happy to see me, because they don't get to see people so much from abroad, especially from Israel. Not long ago, I went to a restaurant, just eating with my friends, and we were talking. We're sitting on a bar, and some people heard me, and they kind of joined the conversation, and they told me, "You're the first person from Israel that I ever saw." And after some really stereotypical questions of do you drive camels to school, or do you have like sand in your boots and so on and on. So we actually get to talk about the things that they didn't really know, the things that me as an Israeli person who lives that, they don't see through the media. And it was, I think, kind of the fun experience for me, and a fun conversation for me and them, and really interesting, because I think I'm the only person they will probably ever meet from this place.
Yes.
And I find it very, very, very important for me to reach those people.
Yes.
To reach those people who don't really get outside the United States, or to actually go to the Middle East, or actually only see that through the media over here, because it's very, very different to see the facts than what people actually live there.
What would you say? I know it's big generalization, but you've probably been here long enough to know we love generalizations and stereotypes, in America. Yeah. What do we get most wrong? What do people that have never been to Israel, what do they get most wrong about Israel?
A lot of people think that Israel is really behind in the history. It means we are driving cars, we have buildings. Israel is pretty technological, I have to say.
Every computer company from Microsoft, right, has a headquarters in Israel.
Right. And I think beside all the high tech thing, we have a lot of agriculture companies who work a lot in Israel and outside of Israel. And it's not only desert. You can see a lot of greeneries and beautiful views. And the people really try to work hard to make the society be better for them, even beside the high tech and so on and on. In society work, in education. And it's really beautiful to see those people, because we cherish, the Israelis cherish the education inside Israel and outside, what we learn about.
Now, when you came to Akron, Canton area, as an emissary, was that the first time you came to this country?
Yes, it's my first time in the United States.
So, you watch TV, you watch Westerns, you watch Dynasty, or whatever, in Israel, because you do have television
Yeah.
and you do have Netflix. Thank you, Fauda,
Thank
right?
you.
But even watching that, reading the internet, what has surprised you about coming to this country now that you've been here all of 2 months?
I think one of the really main thing that I was actually talking to my friends, that I finally got to understand a lot of nuances in the American movies. For example, why every house in America is square, and why they have so much grass over there, and why everything is so big over there. And what you hear and what you see in the movies is not like how you actually see it in your own eyes. And I think I got really fascinated after I came over here, because it's like, oh my God, this is real. It's like, besides, the stereotypical things that are usually on the movies that you know it's not real. But some of the little things that you don't understand, or you need to be American to find out, or to understand what's going on. I get it one by one. I was like watching a TV episode. I'm not really sure of what series it was, and I watched it, and I think some of the jokes I got better now after I'm here for 2 months than what I was in the past. And I think usually when Israelis think about America, then what they come back after it, it's very, very different, especially in the Jewish society and in many communities over here.
Yeah, because you come to temple a lot more once you live here than when you lived in Israel.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you, to make sure I get this question in, can you tell us what it is like to live so close to your enemies, so close to people who can send rockets into homes or schools? What is that like on a daily basis? Because that's your normal. What is it like to be surrounded by people country-wise that may not be your best friends?
I think that first of all, to live in this kind of in area that you're surrounded by enemies, for us it's getting a general thing. So this is our daily life. So we try our best not to be stressed all the time, even though the Israeli societies can be a bit stressful times. But for us, we try our best to continue live and to have our own life proceeding beside all the threats. Even though that it's not that dangerous actually to live, because in most of the places are pretty peaceful and you can have your quiet. But there are some places who are getting rockets all the times and it's really hard to live. But people try their best to continue living over there, and there is a lot of progress to actually come and live in those places to give security and to give more backup for the people who live in the harder living area. We'll call it like that.
When you go back, whether you decide to stay a year or 2 years, how do you think that coming and living here in the United States will change you?
I think when I will come back, I will have more ideas or perspective about things that I got maybe differently than how I was in Israel. And whenever I talk, even now, when I talk to friends about what's going on in the news in Israel and what's going on in the news in America, I give them some things that they might don't know, or they might probably will not understand, and I try to make them more clearly for them. And I believe this is a good thing, because maybe I'm a shaliach now in America, but when I come back, I'm kind of the American shaliach who comes to Israel, and to give them how the Jewish community is and how Americans live in America in a different perspective than what we see in the Israeli media, because it's a bit different.
And I'm going to ask you for just some 1 or 2 word answers to some questions. Have you been here long enough to have a favorite American food?
It's still hard to think about what is my favorite yet. But I think most of the food is really, really tasty, but I didn't get to eat all of that. But so far the pizza is really good over here.
Favorite television show? Are you still watching Israeli
I'm
television?
still watching Israelis, and mostly I'm still on the Netflix side.
And of course you have watched Fauda.
Of course I watch.
Of course you have.
Yeah,
okay.
everybody watches Fauda.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And if you didn't, you should.
That's right. Absolutely. Has it surprised you what you've missed most from home? What have you missed, and has it been a surprise to you what you have missed?
Well, I think it's not that a surprise, but I do miss my family sometimes, and sometimes I miss, to know things Like I know where I'm going. I know these kind of restaurants or places to go. Sometimes it's really hard for me to, okay, where do you want to go? It's like, I don't know. I'm the new guy over here.
Now, do you think, like the last, I don't know, 10 or 20 years, we've had a husband and wife that have come as our shlichim. You have come alone. In 1 or 2 words, do you think that's easier or harder?
Wow. I think it can be both, because when you are one person, it gives you more freedom to go actually wherever you want to do, more dynamic. On the other hand, to be alone, it's harder by mentality, and it's harder by the work, because you have 2 hands to do stuff.
Yes.
And this is the hard part.
Every few years, Israel sends the Akron-Canton area some of their best and brightest. For the next year or 2, this area will have the pleasure to host a young man as our shaliach, our educational and cultural emissary from Israel. Today, Mor gave us a personal perspective on his country and his thoughts on ours. Israel is called the Silicon Valley of the Mediterranean, third only to the US and Canada in terms of number of companies listed on NASDAQ. We hear about the hotspots, their politics, their military, the IDF. Today we got to hear about ways that their citizens in many ways are just like our citizens. Thank you for joining us on Forum 360. I'm Leslie Ungar with your global outlook and local view.
Forum 360 is brought to you by Electrical Impulse Communications, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, an anonymous donor, the Jewish Community Board of Akron, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Blue Green, and Forum 360 supporters.